Look, this is too much cash. Doesn't look right.
The funds are mine. It's all documented, sir.
Put both hands on the counter. Right now.
My hands haven't even moved.
Keep them there. Don't reach for anything.
I'm making a deposit. Just step back.
Security guard body cam footage from inside an Apex Liberty Bank branch captures the moment a routine transaction turns into a confrontation. A teller refuses service to a black man attempting to deposit cash signals for security and escalates the situation within minutes. What no one inside the branch realizes yet is that the man being stopped holds influence inside the institution itself, a detail that will soon force the bank to examine its own actions. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. +4. Sarah Jenkins is behind the counter at teller window 3 when the interaction begins. She is 34 years old and has worked at Apex Liberty Bank for 9 years. Over time, she has become known among staff as someone who strictly enforces rules, often beyond what policy requires. Her personnel file includes multiple customer complaints, alleging discriminatory treatment, all filed over the years, all involving black customers. Each complaint was closed without disciplinary action labeled as a misunderstanding or a difference in communication. +4, she notices the customer before he reaches the counter. The man is Marcus T. Sterling, 51 years old, a private equity investor with significant holdings in logistics infrastructure and commercial real estate. He maintains a low public profile and handles most matters quietly. He is holding a small bag as he walks toward the counter, moving with the calm confidence of someone accustomed to financial institutions. When Marcus stops at teller window 3 and places the envelope on the counter, Sarah's posture changes. She does not greet him, nor does she reach for a deposit slip, instead simply stating ID. +4. Marcus slides his identification across the counter, which Sarah studies before looking at the bag. "How much cash is in there?" she asks, to which he replies $200,000, making Sarah pause and her chair shift as she leans back. "And where did that money come from?" she asks. "It's from a completed business transaction. I have documentation if you need it," he answers. Sarah does not ask to see the documents, instead, noting, "That's a large amount of cash." "We don't usually process deposits like this," she continues while Marcus keeps his hands resting on the counter. +4. "Which policy prevents you from accepting it?" Marcus asks. "I need approval. I can't process this right now," Sarah replies. She does not stand up or move toward a manager. Instead, she glances toward the security desk. David Miller, a contracted security guard in his mid-40s, approaches immediately. He positions himself close behind Marcus, close enough to be felt, without asking Sarah what is happening. His eyes remain on Marcus as she declares, "There's a situation here. He's trying to deposit a suspicious amount of cash." +4. Marcus turns slightly and says, "I'm making a deposit, that's all," as David steps closer. "Sir, keep your hands where I can see them," David demands, prompting Marcus to look down at his hands still on the counter. "They haven't moved," he replies while other customers continue their transactions nearby. At the next window, a white customer completes a cash withdrawal and walks away without being questioned. Marcus looks back at Sarah and asks, "Can you tell me which policy applies here?" To which she responds, "I can't proceed." +4. "You'll need to step aside while this is reviewed," she instructs. Marcus counters, "I'm in the middle of a transaction. I'd like to speak with the branch manager," he adds, leading Sarah to press the call button beneath the counter. She turns Marcus's identification face down and states, "We're not accepting this deposit today," as David remains in place, partially blocking the lobby. "You need to cooperate," David adds, to which Marcus replies, "I am cooperating. I'm waiting for the manager." +3. A few customers nearby begin to notice the standoff. Conversations slow, and people glance toward the counter, but no one intervenes. Marcus repeats himself evenly, "I'd like the branch manager, please," as Sarah gestures toward the back offices. David does not move away. What began as a routine banking transaction has now shifted into a security matter without any specific policy violation being clearly identified. Moments later, James Dalton, the branch manager, steps into view and starts walking toward the teller line, unaware that the decision unfolding at window 3 has already set off a chain of events the bank will not be able to contain. +3. James Dalton reaches the teller line and stops beside teller window 3. He is in his late 40s, wearing a dark suit and an Apex Liberty Bank badge clipped to his lapel. He does not look at Marcus first. His attention goes to Sarah, asking, "What's going on?" as she speaks quickly. "He's trying to deposit a large amount of cash, $200,000. I told him I couldn't process it without approval," she reports. James nods once and turns to Marcus for the first time, saying, Sir, I'm the branch manager. +3. There seems to be an issue with your transaction, James says, and Marcus meets his eyes, replying, I'm depositing cash into my account. I was told there's a policy problem, but no one has been able to tell me which policy, Marcus continues. James glances at the bag on the counter, then at David, standing close behind Marcus, and remarks, That's a significant amount of cash. We have to be careful, he adds. Careful how? Marcus asks, to which James responds, With large cash deposits, there are regulations. +3. We have to verify sources, James says. Marcus replies, I offered documentation. It wasn't reviewed, making James look back at Sarah and ask, Did he provide anything? He said he had paperwork. Sarah replies, But the situation felt off, prompting James to turn back to Marcus. Sir, where did the cash come from? James asks, and Marcus answers, It came from a completed business transaction. The funds are legitimate and documented. James pauses and asks, What kind of business transaction? To which Marcus replies, A private equity sale, causing James's expression to tighten slightly. +3. We're going to need to review that before accepting this, James states. That's fine. Marcus says who's reviewing it, which makes James hesitate before answering compliance. Have you contacted them? Marcus asks. Not yet, James says. But before we do that, I need you to step aside. You're holding up the line, the manager instructs. Marcus looks past James at the customers behind him and notes, the line is moving. No one else has been stopped. +3. I'm not holding up the line. I'm at the counter, Marcus states, and James's tone shifts as he says, Sir, I'm asking you to cooperate. I am cooperating. I'm asking for the policy that applies, Marcus replies while David steps closer and adds, You heard the manager. You need to move, David demands, but Marcus turns slightly toward him and says, I'm speaking with the manager. James raises a hand not toward David, but toward Marcus saying, Let's keep this calm, to which Marcus replies, It has been calm before Sarah interjects. +3. He's refusing instructions, she claims, and Marcus looks back at her asserting, I asked a question, while James exhales and lowers his voice. Sir, given the amount of cash and the circumstances, we're not comfortable proceeding with this deposit today, James states, and Marcus asks, Based on what? James doesn't answer directly, stating instead, We're going to place a temporary hold on the transaction until compliance reviews it. You can't place a hold on a deposit that hasn't been accepted, Marcus points out, causing James to stiffen. +3. We can restrict activity if there are concerns, James argues. What concerns? Marcus asks, making James look at the envelope again. Large cash deposits raise red flags, James says. Marcus counters, they don't raise red flags when policy is followed. James glances at Sarah, then back to Marcus, insisting, I need you to step aside, to which Marcus replies, No. I need you to identify the policy you're applying, Marcus demands as the lobby grows quieter. A customer near the seating area begins recording on their phone. David notices but does not intervene. James straightens his posture and warns, Sir, if you refuse to cooperate, we may have to escalate this. Marcus asks, To who? Corporate. James says compliance. Marcus answers, That's fine. Call them, leaving James looking surprised. He pulls his phone from his pocket and steps a few feet away, turning his back slightly to the counter. Sarah watches him closely while David remains behind Marcus with his arms crossed. While James is on the phone, Sarah leans toward David. They always love being difficult, she says quietly. Marcus hears it but does not respond, and James returns after a minute. Compliance wants your account information, James says. So Marcus slides his card across the counter, which James picks up and studies. We're also going to need to verify your identity again, James adds, and Marcus points out, My ID is already there. James looks down at the ID Sarah placed face down earlier and turns it over. He types something into the terminal at the manager station. The screen reflects briefly in his glasses and his typing slows. He stops and looks at the screen again, which Sarah notices, asking, Is there a problem? James doesn't answer right away, instead picking up the phone again and stepping farther away, this time lowering his voice. David shifts his stance and asks Sarah, What's going on now? To which she replies, I don't know, but something's not right. Marcus remains still at the counter, while James returns a second time, his expression noticeably different. Sir, I need to confirm some information, James states. Marcus replies, Go ahead, and James hesitates. Have you conducted prior business with Apex Liberty Bank? He asks. Yes, Marcus says for years, and James nods slowly. And you said the funds are from a private equity transaction, James verifies. That's correct, Marcus confirms. James looks back at the terminal, then at Sarah, then at David, before declaring, "We're going to pause this interaction for now." Marcus waits as James clears his throat and announces, "Compliance is escalating this to legal causing." Sarah's eyes to widen slightly as she asks, "Legal? Why?" James does not answer her, instead looking at Marcus again and requesting, "Please remain here while we complete our review." Marcus gives a single nod, and the bag of cash remains untouched on the counter as James turns and walks quickly toward the back office, with his phone pressed to his ear, unaware that the name he just ran has already set off alarms far beyond this branch. James Dalton disappears into the back offices with his phone pressed to his ear and closes the door behind him. The teller line remains frozen in an uncomfortable pause. Sarah stays at her station with her hands clasped together. David remains behind Marcus, no longer speaking, watching the room instead of the man. The cash is still on the counter untouched as minutes pass and customers whisper. A few glance toward the counter, then back to their phones. No one approaches teller window 3, and Marcus does not move until James returns several minutes later, no longer holding his phone. His pace is faster now, and his expression is controlled but different from before. "Sarah," he says, "step away from the terminal." She looks surprised and asks, "What?" To which James repeats, "Step away." Sarah hesitates, then slides her chair back, stands and moves to the side of the counter. David straightens, unsure whether to stay in position, but James looks at him and says, "You can step back for now." David does not ask questions. He takes 2 steps away from Marcus, creating space for the first time since arriving. James places both hands on the counter and looks directly at Marcus, saying, "Mr. Sterling," to which Marcus nods and replies, "Yes. We're verifying some information connected to your account. This may take a few moments longer," James explains, and Marcus answers, "That's fine." James turns to Sarah and orders, "Do not engage with this customer further unless I ask you to," making Sarah's jaw tighten. "I was just following procedure." She defends, but James does not respond, moving instead to a side terminal and logging in again. His eyes move across the screen more slowly this time. He scrolls, stops, then scrolls again. At the same moment, a phone rings in the back office, followed by another seconds later, and James answers his desk phone. "Yes," he says, "this is James Dalton." He listens, nodding slightly, adding, "Yes, I see that now," as his posture stiffens. "I understand," he says. "Yes, I'll keep him here," hanging up and exhaling quietly while Sarah watches him. "What's going on?" she asks, and James looks at her questioning. "When was the last time you checked the shareholder registry?" Which makes Sarah frown. "That's not my responsibility," she insists, and James does not argue, turning back to Marcus. "Mr. Sterling, can you confirm your middle initial?" he asks. "T," Marcus replies, and James types again until the terminal refreshes and he stops typing. He looks up from behind the counter, and Sarah notices the color drain from his face as she asks, "James?" James ignores her and picks up his phone again, this time not stepping away, saying quietly, "Yes." "Is legal on the line?" he asks, listening before saying, "Yes, majority position," glancing at Marcus and repeating, 7%, the word hangs in the air. Sarah looks between them and asks, 70% of what, as James covers the phone. "Step back," he tells her, while David shifts uncomfortably and asks, "Is there a problem?" prompting James to look at him. "No, there was a mistake," James replies, turning back to the phone to say, "Understood. Yes, we'll comply." He hangs up, sets the phone down, carefully straightens his jacket, and lowers his voice to say, "Mr. Sterling. There appears to have been an error in how this situation was handled," James admits while Marcus remains calm. "That's what I said earlier," Marcus points out, and James nods, once stating, "You are listed as a majority shareholder in Apex Liberty Bank." The words land quietly without ceremony, and Sarah's eyes widen as she says, "That can't be right," to which James turns to her and confirms, "It is." David looks from James to Marcus, then takes another step back. James continues, "Compliance and legal are reviewing the incident now," while Marcus looks at the bag. "My deposit will process it," James says quickly. "Immediately," but Marcus shakes his head slightly and says, "Not here," causing James to hesitate. "Sir, you've made your position clear. So has your staff." Marcus observes, and James replies, "Understood," before Sarah speaks up. "I didn't know who he was," she claims, and Marcus looks at her for the first time, replying, "That wasn't the issue." Silence settles over the counter before James clears his throat and announces, "Corporate leadership will be arriving later today." "I won't be here," Marcus says, and James nods again, agreeing. "Of course," as Marcus gathers his identification and the bag of cash. David steps fully aside, clearing the path, and as Marcus turns to leave, James speaks again. "Mr. Sterling, this will be addressed," James assures him, to which Marcus pauses briefly and replies, "It should be." He walks toward the exit, passing customers who now avoid eye contact. Their phones lowered the moment, already shifting from confrontation to quiet realization. Behind the counter, Sarah stands frozen, staring at the terminal, finally understanding who she treated like a problem and what that decision is about to cost her. By the time Marcus Sterling leaves the building, the branch is no longer operating normally. James Dalton remains behind the counter for several seconds after the doors close, staring straight ahead. Then his phone vibrates again. He looks down at the screen, answers, and says only one word: "Yes." He turns to Sarah and orders, "Log out of your terminal." And when she looks up and asks why, he commands, "Now," and she logs out. James takes her place and signs on under his credentials. He does not ask her to stay. He does not ask her to leave either, and she stands there anyway, unsure what to do with her hands. David Miller is instructed to return to the entrance and stop engaging with customers unless asked, which he complies with without comment. The authority he carried minutes earlier is gone, and within an hour, 2 senior compliance officers arrive from corporate. They do not introduce themselves to customers, walking straight past the teller line and into the back offices. James follows them inside and closes the door. The branch remains open, but no large transactions are processed. Tellers are instructed to redirect customers and keep conversations short, while inside the back office the footage is already playing. The compliance officers watch the interaction from multiple angles, pausing, rewinding, and playing sections again. They watch Sarah refuse the deposit, they watch security move in, and they watch James escalate without citing a policy. They say very little until one taking notes asks, "Has she had prior complaints?" To which James answers yes, 3. All similar. The other asks, James nods, and when asked, "Why wasn't this addressed?" he does not respond. By the end of the day, Sarah Jenkins is placed on administrative leave. Her access badge is collected before she leaves the building. She is told not to return until contacted by Human Resources. David Miller's security firm receives a notice of contract review the same evening. By the next week, their services at Apex Liberty Bank are terminated, and James Dalton is placed on leave pending investigation. His authority over the branch is suspended, and an interim manager is appointed within 48 hours. Corporate legal issues and internal directive, that same night ordering all branches to review large cash deposit protocols. Mandatory bias training is scheduled. Compliance oversight is expanded, and bonuses tied to branch performance are frozen until reviews are complete. None of this is announced publicly. 3 days later, Marcus Sterling deposits the same $200,000 at a different Apex Liberty Bank branch. The transaction takes less than 5 minutes. No questions are asked beyond what policy requires, and no security is involved. The original branch remains closed for a systems review the following week. Internally, the incident is documented as a failure of procedure and judgment, but externally there is no press release. No apology is issued publicly, and Marcus does not request one. At the next board meeting, the incident is referenced briefly. No names are mentioned aloud. The footage is shown. The discussion is short, policies are updated, and authority is clarified. Consequences are finalized, and the bank moves on. For Sarah Jenkins, the decision made at teller window 3 ends her career at Apex Liberty Bank. For James Dalton, it ends his position there, and for David Miller, it ends his firm's relationship with the institution. For Marcus Sterling, it confirms something he already knew: he never needed to raise his voice. He never needed to explain who he was. The system revealed itself the moment it decided he didn't belong. Subscribe for stories like this and comment below with your thoughts on what should have.